With apologies to Keith Olbermann, we begin with this. Satisfaction guaranteed. You will notice that the logo on this in the middle is that of the Iowa Hawkeyes, a team that I have ranted about on here once before with the whole Adam Woodbury eye-poking situation, and when I said that Fran McCaffrey was not a very good coach by not disciplining his player, or something to that effect. I can't remember exactly what I said, but now looking back on it, it's kind of in the rearview mirror. I've forgotten about that. They've moved on from it, clearly. But it's time to move on from something else, because what I experienced yesterday was probably one of the most amazing, insane, bizarre things that I've ever experienced in my life, doing a show like this, doing a YouTube video, doing something to the masses, being a bracketologist. It was clearly the wildest thing I had ever seen. On Monday, I posted my latest bubble board on Twitter, which I do usually all the time. That's no big deal. I've done that on a regular basis. No big deal. I've always done it. And then I wake up on Tuesday, and my Twitter feed and my email are simply blown up by Hawkeye Nation. Apparently, I did something which apparently, now that I know that Dan Dockich also learned the hard way I shouldn't do, I poked the hawk. Apparently, Iowa fans are so die-hard and so passionate that if you even say the word bubble around them, they will completely freak the F out. And that's exactly what they did. Now, some of the tweets, I will say, were very subtle. They were just laughing or posting pictures, and that I understand. That I get. And I know that as a bracketologist, like myself, like Joe Lenardi, like Jerry Palm, like others out there are going to be those critics out there that are going to slam us and not agree with what we say or what we think or where their team is, that kind of thing. But this is the first time this has ever happened. To me, personally. This is the first time that a fan base has just gotten so up in arms. And I will say, I need to clarify this. This is some fans. This is not all representative. I'm not saying all Iowa fans are jerks and trolls and whatever. I'm not saying all Iowa fans are like this. Some of them actually later discussed with me and said, I agree with you on some things. Yes, there are some rational Iowa fans out there. I don't hate Iowa. I'm not going to hold a grudge against Iowa because of this. But I just want to say, and I had to say this, that I was at least disappointed, frustrated, angry, and upset with some of the tweets that were directed at me. One Iowa fan said if I had a disease. One Iowa fan said I was drunk. One Iowa fan even said to delete my Twitter. Well, for the record, let me state this. No, I do not have a disease, at least none that I've been tested for. No, I am not drunk. I'm not even a heavy drinker. You can ask my best friends. And 3, no, I will not delete my Twitter and succumb to your attacks. I sincerely hope and pray for you. Because my word as a Christian believer says to love your enemies. I am not going to hold grudges because that's not who I am. I'm not going to be a screamer because that's not who I am. I'm not going to scream back. At the end, it just got to a point where simply I let it die. I tweeted out, you guys are simply way too die-hard. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. Nothing I say is going to please you guys, and I moved on, and good luck to you. They clearly felt, some of these fans that tweeted at me felt that Iowa was not a bubble team in the position they were in. But they must have felt that I said that Iowa was going to miss the tournament, or that I had shot the entire state of Iowa, or something to that effect. They clearly were not satisfied. Is this what some of you think? Is this, are you expecting satisfaction from every single bracketologist out there? Another one of these people tweeted at me and said, no one has Iowa. And this was before last night, and I'm going to preface this again. This was before last night when they beat Indiana. So now at the moment, I have Iowa safely in the field. This was before they got their 4th, 5th top 50 win. This is before that. Another one said, no one has Iowa on the bubble right now. Well, he was wrong then on 2 accounts because according to bracketmatrix.com, which I find is a very usable and handy data site, 18 projectionist brackets, 18 bracketologists like myself had Iowa as a 10 seed or lower, meaning they were on either the last 4 byes or the last 4 teams in line, that cut line. And then ESPN prefaced their homepage, and there was someone tweeted it at me as well, prefaced their homepage with a shot of Iowa and Indiana on the front page, Big Ten's bubble battle. So at least some people out there have my support. I get it. I get what I do as a bracketologist is not easy. It is our opinion. Calm down. I've never said I'm an expert on anything that I do, nor will I ever claim to be, nor have I ever said that. And I understand that people are going to disagree, and that's fine. This is America. That's what's great about this country. You can disagree with people's opinions. You can disagree with people's thoughts. You can say what you want. I'm not going to tell you to stop tweeting because that's not the American way. But do you get any satisfaction of feeling better actually about yourself, about what you tweet at people? You know, do you honestly, does it make you look any better? There's only one answer to that question. That answer is no. It doesn't help your team's record. It doesn't help your team's standing. It doesn't, improve you, by any stretch. It doesn't improve your record in the Big Ten. It doesn't help anybody. It's a lose-lose situation when you directly attack somebody, and say those kind of things for an opinion, for how I felt, how I evaluated Iowa at the time, how I evaluated them, how I saw them throughout the whole season. I look at an entire body of work. I took the Northwestern loss into account. I took their conference record into account. I took their quality wins into account. The North Carolina win you've got on your record is amazing. And then you got that win, and that was a huge win. So now you're in a much better position as of this point and further on. Even if you lose to Northwestern on Saturday, I don't think you're missing the tournament. But please, I ask one simple plea. Spare the attacks, please. Don't cross over that line. I understand that I'm not going to please every fan base out there when I put out my projection. I get that. I understand that. Sometimes, but this was the first case where people decide to bombard me because they think that I've completely disowned their team, like stomped it in the ground, put it in the mud, drove a stake through the Hawkeye logo. That's not what I did. I never said your team was going to miss the tournament. I never said that at all. I had them in a precarious position at the time because that's how I evaluated them. But I never said your team wasn't getting in. Your team was playing well enough to get into the NCAA tournament, and clearly last night against Indiana you proved that. But prove something else to me. Prove something that, satisfied or not, satisfied or not, spare the attacks. Don't be that guy. Don't be someone who is, ESPN had a thing, I think Kurt Schilling has shown it on, talks about cyberbullying online. Don't stumble to that level. If I had shown your guys' tweets to the University of Iowa president and their provost, who, by the way, I know very well because at one time I believe she was at Purdue where I graduated from, do you think she would have been proud of that? Do you think that would have been representative of the Iowa fan base? I hope not. I hope and pray not. I hope that Iowa as a whole, and I understand you guys are diehards, and I get that. Big Ten fans, hey, I'm one. We're diehards. We're passionate about our teams. I get that. But you can show passion, and you can show being diehard, and you can show disagreeing with someone in a different way. Keep it low key. The LMAO, the pictures. That I laughed at that. I like, okay, these people disagree with me. That's cool. I get that. They think I'm wrong. Okay. But when it got to a more personal level, that's when I became a little bit disappointed in you guys. So please, for our sake, for the sake of college basketball, for the sake of fanaticism, for the sake of satisfaction and bracketologists, lay off the personal stuff, please. I hope that your guys as a fan base aren't like this. I pray that I can maybe someday set foot in Iowa City, Iowa, and not get personally attacked or physically, that I don't have to call security like Dan Dockich did that one time. I hope that's the case. So I'm going to put it to bed. I'm going to lay it to rest. I've said my piece now. Just understand that, I hope now that you're satisfied, now that I've safely put your team in the field, I hope that we can put all of this behind us. Alright. I had to start with that. I prefaced it on Twitter by saying, or on the channel, I was going to do an intro like that. I had to clear the air. I had to get that out there. Welcome to Tracking the Madness. Welcome to Bracket 4. Welcome to this video. I just had to do that because, like I said, that was really the first time that any fan base, anywhere, any team, any time, had completely freaked about where I had placed their team in the field. And I was surprised it hadn't happened, earlier or sooner. I was just like so shocked at all of that happening. It was just really overwhelming. It, came so fast. I seen a couple of them, and I'm like, okay, this is, they're obviously disagreeing. These are passionate Iowa fans. I see that, and then the next thing, it's like, whoa, okay, now we're kind of crossing the line a bit. So I just plea, I'm not a hater. I don't hold grudges. I don't like to be that guy. I'm not a screamer. I don't, unless I have to when I'm ranting about something. But I wasn't going to rant here. I didn't want to rant at Iowa fans because I know there are some of them out there that aren't like those people that came after me on Twitter in the more negative way. So I know that there are rational Iowa fans. So I wasn't going to go fully off. I just wanted to make a case, a plea, to all the, anyone who might disagree with me. You can disagree, but please, not. There's a line that really I don't think should be crossed. So that's just what I wanted to throw out there. And actually, if I learned anything from this, also maybe look at myself in the mirror a little bit, because as we do these projections and bracketologies, and people are going to disagree, and it kind of made me take a look at myself and say maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental toward other bracketologists. So it really, this has to be said. I'm sorry, Joe Lenardi. I'm sorry if I've ever put you down. I'm sorry if I've ever said a bad word about you. I'm sorry if, our disagreements tend to clash that I've gone off and ranted against. I'm sorry. We do the same thing. We make sure our opinion. We share our thoughts. People are going to disagree with us. Fan bases are going to disagree with us. But there's no and we can disagree against each other. But there's no reason for one to slam the other or vice versa. And I know that you probably don't even know who I am, and that you probably don't even know, that I exist or that I even do this, but that's okay. I wanted, this whole situation really made me take a look at myself and realize, hey, I'm not going to please all the fans, and that's fine. I'm not going to, I'm going to get a lot of support from fans sometimes, and that's fine. But why should I, go off on other projections because they're wrong? Why should I? What right do I have to go off on them because they're wrong? I don't, now looking at it, I don't feel good about it anymore. So I think in a way we can all learn from this. I think in a way, I can learn that I don't need to be as judgmental toward other bracketologists and have better, maybe understanding of fan bases. And I hope the Iowa fans, the non-rational ones, understand that, okay, we can disagree, but, don't cross the line. We can be passionate, but don't be, trolls and jerks. And I hope that, the Iowa fans in general, can, understand, okay, now that we won the game, he's impressed now, he's put us in a better light, we're locked into the field, now we're good. So I just had to start with that. That's really all I wanted to say. So with that out of the way, and with that now, I had to start with that to clear the air, to say my piece, and move on, and hopefully the hatchet's buried, and we can move on from that. I have made the fourth bracket projection now, and I will share that with you guys, where I have teams now. Again, this situation, ever fluid, ever changing. I even put on Twitter last night, after the whole thing with Iowa and Ole Miss winning last night, I locked them into the tournament field. I feel at this point their resumes are solid enough that even if they lose out the rest of the way, I don't see either of those two teams missing the tournament field. I think there's both in a very good position. So there's been a lot of shifting, a lot of teams now either dropping a line or two as a result of that, teams moving up a line or two. I said, when there's spots open on the bubble because teams get locked into the field, it opens up spots, and that means you've got to shift some teams. You've got to move some teams up or some teams down. Even if they're not playing a game, you still have to do that based on their resume, based on where they're at in the RPI, based on their conference and road records, based on all the factors that the committee takes into account. So I really had to consider that when I put this list together. So I'm going to share the projection first with you guys, and then we're going to again take a look at really the full bubble board breakdown, seeing where teams are at, what they have left on their schedules, and what they really have to do going forward to put themselves potentially in a better position in the tournament field. So we start with, again, the number one seeds, of course, have also shifted. As you guys know, Gonzaga was a number one for a long time, but they lost to BYU last week. So that now drops them, at least in my opinion, to the 2 line. And BYU very much now is in the discussion to making the field now, because that really gave them a top 50 win. They put their RPI, I think their RPI jumped like 20 spots, up like to 38. So they're very much now in the discussion. I have BYU just below the cut line on the first team out of the field. So BYU is very much a team that will be hotly debated, especially with the West Coast Conference Tournament coming up. They're going to be a team that is going to be very hotly debated in the days to come. So let's start with the number ones now. Pretty much 3 are unchanged. That's Kentucky, Virginia, and Duke. Kentucky pulled it out again last night. That game was very entertaining down the stretch against Georgia. I watched that game. I thought Georgia was going to spring the upset, but they blew it late. Even Creighton last night had a chance to upset Villanova, and they gave it away down the stretch. So he could have had a couple upsets last night, but these top teams, speaking of Villanova now, they are the number one that replaces Gonzaga as the 4th number one. So we'll start in the South region in Houston. The Wildcats are still the overall number one, going for perfection now, 30-0. I believe now Kentucky is like the 3rd team, I believe, since 76 to start 30-0 or something like that, 3rd or 4th team, because I know Indiana, who in 76 was the last team to go undefeated, did it, and Rutgers also that same year. So the Wildcats continue to roll along. I have them taking on an opening round winner. Same 2 teams probably think I had in this spot last week or something to that effect. Maybe it's shifted a little bit. Bucknell out of the Patriot League, 18-13. And St. Francis, New York leading the Northeast 21-10. The Northeast tournament starts today, by the way. Patriot tournament will be starting up here, and I think it's already started as well. The first game was yesterday with Army Navy, so both those leagues tournaments are well underway. We'll see who comes out of that in the long run, but both those teams have been the favorites. Although Bucknell's been battling with Colgate in the Patriot League. St. Francis, New York, though, the runaway favorite to win the Northeast. Now here's your 8-9 matchup. And again, and I know that, again, please preface me on this, you might not like where your team is seated here based on the matchup that could come, but somebody's got to be in this spot. I have Iowa as an 8 in this region in the South, taking on Temple the 9 out of the American. And then now, hopefully you don't say, oh, that means he put us in the Kentucky bracket, oh, he hates us. No. Somebody has to be in this spot, okay? And it was just depending on where I shuffled teams in that 8 seed range. I got Colorado State as an 8, and most brackets don't have them there, so I had to shuffle them around. I had to put Dayton up here and other teams that kind of fell in this line. So because you're well above the cut, you're not on the 9-10 now anymore. You're in the big spot now. So someone's got to be in this spot, and I had to put them here. So, but again, hey, and someone I think also tweeted at me, I wouldn't want Iowa to be in my bracket because they're a matchup nightmare. So maybe that'd be a good matchup for Kentucky. That would be a really good test to see where this Iowa team is really at. So maybe I'm rewarding you. Maybe I'm doing you guys a favor here by putting you guys in this spot. So Iowa, again, showed me with the big win over Indiana yesterday. It really had to make me think about where to put IU in the field now because they've hit the skids of late, and their RPI is now below 50. So really, technically, if you look at the numbers, it's no longer a top 50 win for Iowa. They still have 4 top 50 wins, but it's still a good win. The North Carolina win still looks crystal. You swept Ohio State, who is likely a tournament team. You beat, I think, Maryland was the other win you guys had. So yeah, these are very good wins, and you guys showed me last night that you belong in this tournament field and no longer a bubble team. So Pop, well done. So and in a good way, not in a bad way. And then Temple's been a team really on the rise. They do have the win against Kansas going for them. They keep winning games in the American. Really nothing hurting the Owls at this point. So they right now are one of the teams that are right along that line as well. That's safe at the moment, at least 2 lines above the cut. 5-12. This would be to me a really fun kind of technically mid-major battle here. Northern Iowa out of the Missouri Valley, 27-3, against Stephen F. Austin, 25-4 out of the Southland. And remember, Stephen F. Austin drew VCU last year when and they beat VCU in a thrilling overtime game. So this could be again one of those situations where two not really heralded teams, although I've seen Northern Iowa play this year, and they are very, very solid. And Stephen F. Austin, I think I picked him to win that game last year over VCU, and then I had him, I think, either losing to UCLA or something to that effect, which they did. But again, dangerous matchup there. That would be a very, very fun matchup, I think, to see between two very solid offensive teams. And then the 4-13, Notre Dame, 24-5 out of the ACC. I have them taking on Louisiana Tech out of Conference USA, 23-7. Again, the Bulldogs have been pretty much the runaway favorite in Conference USA all season. And Notre Dame with Jaron Grant and the way that they play, always a fun watch there for the Irish. Bottom half of the South, 6-11. Georgetown out of the Big East at 19-9. The Hoyas got a big win over Butler last night. That was very huge. I think Georgetown's already a lock anyway. I think they're safe in the field. The Big East is at least, I think right now is like 5 locks in the field. I'd say Villanova, Butler, Georgetown, Providence, St. John's. I think all 5 of those teams are safely locked. Xavier is hovering. I think right now they're on the 9 line. They're safe, but certainly not fully safe yet. And then Seton Hall really not in the discussion at this point. They've kind of completely collapsed. I think they're certainly still hovering there. I think the RPI is like 74, 75, so they're certainly in the discussion, at least, on watch, but not really on the bubble anymore. They'd have to, really make a deep, deep run in the Big East tournament to have any chance of potentially getting a look back in the field. But a big win for Georgetown. I have them taking on Ole Miss, 20-10 out of the SEC. I think the Rebels are going to get in the field. They're going to be around the 11-10, 9 line, I think, in the end. They're still kind of on the low end of the SEC, but they did beat Alabama last night. Alabama is a RPI top 100 team, so I think barely. I think they're kind of hovering around that 100 line. So I think for now they're still okay. And again, I can't see them missing it at this point. They're going to play some good teams in the SEC tournament, so I can't envision a scenario where Ole Miss misses the field. At least I think they'll either be on this line or the 10 or the first 4. So I think they'll be in that general area, but I think Ole Miss is good. 3-14, Iowa State out of the Big 12, 21-8. The Cyclones. I watched them play a couple nights ago when they played. Oh, who did they play? I think they beat somebody. And I had them. I picked them to win. They came back. They came back from like 20-some down. Who was that? I just watched that game. Now I gotta find it. Yeah, Oklahoma. Yeah, they were down. That game was over. They were down like 20 points in the second half. And then they just went on a tear, and I picked Iowa State on the street to win the game, and then that was another reason why Iowa folks, kind of freaked out because I tweeted a picture of Cy and Iowa State, and because I had him, but no, I'm not an Iowa State fan. I never said that. I was rooting for them because I picked them on streak for the cash, so I had them in that regard. That's not the reason why I was against Iowa either. So get that out of your heads. So 21-8 out of the Big 12 3 seed. I have them taking on Georgia Southern, leading the Sun Belt 20-7. That again, the Sun Belt tournament is going to be fun to watch too. You got Georgia Southern in there. You got Georgia State. You got ULM. That's like a 3-way tie. So, but right now the Eagles have the spot based on the fact they had a better regular season record at 20-7. Wouldn't shock me if Georgia State got in there either. At 20-9, the Panthers are like 80 RPI, so they're going to be a tough out as well in that tournament. 7-10, San Diego State out of the Mountain West, 22-7. Yeah, they might play some ugly basketball when it comes to the offensive end, but the defense certainly is very, very strong there for Coach Steve Fisher. Excuse me. I'm taking on Oklahoma State out of the Big 12, 17-11. I have now, again, these teams on the 10 line are in the last four buys category, meaning they're above the cut line, but they're certainly not safe by any stretch. They've kind of really collapsed down the stretch. They've kind of taken a Texas-like tumble in some ways. It looked like they were a tournament team earlier in the year. Now they're starting to fade a little bit. They've lost some games. If I look here at Oklahoma State's numbers, what's really going for Oklahoma State is their strength of schedule, because they play in such a very good Big 12. They have the 11th toughest strength of schedule, and they have a 42 in the RPI. They have 6 top 50 wins going for them, so that's very strong based on other bubble teams. 8 top 100 wins, but the problem is 4 and 6 in their last 10 games. They're not a very good road team. They're 3 and 7 on the road, so that's really what's hurting Oklahoma State right now, is the fact that they're really going the wrong direction. So right now, still to me looks like a tournament team, but very much in a very precarious situation right now. If they win some games down the stretch, I think Oklahoma State will still be a tournament team. And then the 2-15, Wisconsin out of the Big Ten. Again, the Badgers going to be the favorite, to win the Big Ten tournament, probably in all likelihood. 26-3. I am taking on Northeastern. The Huskies leading the Colonial at 20-11. They're going to be in a battle, I think, with teams like William and Mary and James Madison and teams like that in the Colonial tournament as well. So that's going to be a very interesting tourney to watch as well. West region, top seed here is Villanova. Again, I mentioned the escape over Creighton last night. Creighton led for most of that game late. I thought Creighton was going to pull out the win on the home floor, but Villanova came back. I mean, Arcidiacono, by the way, fun player to watch. I mean, he really is the carrier of that team. I can't spell his last name, but I tell you what, he's definitely a fun basketball player to watch, and leads that team and carries them. He was a great leading Villanova down the stretch last night. 28-2 out of the Big East. I'm taking on Sacramento State, currently leading the Big Sky Conference at 19-8. But don't be surprised if Eastern Washington also potentially could come out of that Big Sky Conference as well. The Eagles do have a win over Indiana this year. Remember, beat them at IU early in the year. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at the Big Sky Conference. And you got Montana in the mix, and Northern Arizona and other teams as well. 8-9. Colorado State out of the Mountain West. I have them here on the 8 line, 24-5 against Oregon out of the Pac-12 at 22-8. A lot of people, and Joe Lunardi included, and this is where I'm going to disagree with him. I'm not going to hate on him. He has Colorado State as like a bubble team. He has them on the last 4 in. See, this is where I disagree a bit. I don't see Colorado State, and I've said it on here for weeks, and some people have had Colorado State as a bubble team. I don't really see Colorado State as a bubble team. I really don't. I think they're 24 wins, a strong Mountain West, 2 top 50 wins against fellow potential tournament teams in Boise State and San Diego State. The only really thing that's really lowering Colorado State's seed is that really bad strength of schedule at 100+. But other than that, I really don't see, I think certainly they'll be in this 8-11 seed range. I agree with that, but I don't have bubble next to Colorado State's name. I really don't. I think they're going to be in a lot safer position, I think, than a lot of other teams. So if you have Colorado State in the bubble, that's cool. And I think, certainly the profile, some things about that could scream that. But I personally don't see them that way, and I think I have them ahead of the cut line, the safe, fairly safe 4-by-4 in discussion. I think they're okay. I wouldn't say lock. I don't know about lock. I don't think they're in that category yet, but I certainly think they're going to be a tournament team. And Oregon, of course, has definitely been one of the most improved teams over the past month and a half of the year. Oregon has played very, very well. They play Oregon State tonight in the Civil War. That's going to be a fun game to watch tonight. Oregon State's not, I don't think, a top 100 RPI team right now, but it's nonetheless, no matter what the records are, you throw those out the window too. It's a great game. It's going to be a great atmosphere, I think, at Oregon State, and that's a big game for Oregon as well to keep their tournament hopes alive. 5-12, West Virginia out of the Big 12 at 22-8. The Mountaineers, again, always a strong team, always a fun team to watch. The Big 12 tournament is going to be crazy. I think Seth Davis on Twitter tweeted it out last night that college basketball is cray-cray. I think it was Pat Forty that said that the Big 12 tournament is going to be mayhem. I agree 100%. The Big 12 is just been so fun to watch this year. I am taking on Wofford out of the Southern Conference. 25-6. I've said on here that Wofford, I think, is going to be one of the teams that if they get the right matchup, potentially be a real tough out for one of these 5 seeds. So again, on that 12 line, I think they're a very, very dangerous 12 seed. Same with Stephen F. Austin, same with Murray State. I have all 3 of those teams, by the way, on the 12 line. So they're going to be really, I think those 3 teams, I think if you're talking a really dangerous sleeper that can make a potential run, Wofford, Stephen F. Austin, Murray State, it starts and ends there. So maybe even you put in Iona. So I think certainly, and speaking of the Gales, here they are as a 13th seed here in the West, 24-7 out of the MAC. I haven't taken on Louisville out of the ACC at 23-6. And Iona's games usually, they're not pretty. I mean, they're very low-scoring games. They tend to squeak by some teams in their conference. But I tell you what, A.J. English, the players they have on that team, fun to watch. A fun player to watch. If you've not watched A.J. English of Iona, he's a very fun player to watch. So just keep those couple teams in mind when you're, again, thinking about potential bracket busters. 6-11, I think this would be a fun one too. These are 2 very entertaining, high-scoring teams as well. Again, the Big East, also a strong conference. I got Providence here on the 6th line at 20-9. No danger for Providence this year. No having to win the conference tournament to get in like last year when they ended up on the 11 line after winning the conference tournament. Surprisingly, Providence is safe this year. I am taking on Boise State out of the Mountain West. What a turnaround has been of late for the Broncos. Derek Marks, a fun player to watch there, 22-7. The Broncos leading the conference right now. Actually, technically in a tie with San Diego State, but they did either they beat or they swept San Diego State. So I think they swept them, if I recall correctly. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think Boise State swept San Diego State. So, so strong team, fun team to watch. I think they lost one of their other better players earlier in the season, yet the fact they're still doing this, hats off to Coach Leon Rice and the job that he's done there at Boise State, because very, very entertaining team to watch. The 3-14, Maryland out of the Big Ten. The Terps at 25-5, been strong all year. Mello Trimble, a great player, great freshman there, out of the Big Ten, leading this team. I have them taking on UC Davis, the Aggies leading the Big West at 22-5. But don't fall asleep on UC Irvine. Don't fall asleep on the Anteaters, because they are, I think, are finished out a game out. They're going to be a tough out in the Big West tournament as well. 7-10, here's where I have Ohio State. The Buckeyes 21-8 out of the Big Ten. Again, D'Angelo Russell, entertaining player to watch, fun player to watch. Will certainly, I think, be in the Player of the Year discussion. I have them taking on Texas A&M, 20-9 out of the SEC. Now, Texas A&M did suffer a really disheartening loss yesterday. Let's see, they lost to, I think this was another missed opportunity for a top 50 win. I believe, yeah, they lost to Florida. Now, Florida has an odd profile. Florida is a top 100 RPI team, but the record's like 500. They get Kentucky next, by the way, and they've just been a very rough year for Florida. But that was a disheartening loss for Texas A&M. Texas A&M still only has the wins against LSU to go by. The sweep of LSU, who's barely in the field themselves. So really it's not a whole lot to go on. But still, I think, 20-9 record, a strong conference record in the SEC. I think Texas A&M right now is a tournament team, but certainly not in a very safe position. So that's why I have them now on the 10 line here. In fact, they're with LSU on the 10 line, so they're both kind of in a precarious situation. But certainly right now, I think Texas A&M is a decent basketball team, but 20 wins. I think at that point you're certainly a safe team, but you got to avoid bad losses down the stretch. So, this is where you got to really prove to us projectionists, prove to the college basketball fans of the landscape that you are a tournament team. So, Texas A&M, got to do something, I think, a little bit of work in the SEC tournament, but otherwise, if they get a couple big wins under the belt, I think the Aggies are good. And then the 2-15, Arizona out of the Pac-12, big win over Utah, by the way. Not a whole lot last week. Not a whole lot of teams are able to win at Utah. That was really I think that was like Utah's first home loss of the season, if I remember correctly. So that was a huge win for Arizona in that environment. 26-3 out of the Pac-12. I have them taking on New Mexico State. The Aggies, like 4 games ahead again in the WAC at 19-10. They will be the favorite in the WAC tournament, obviously, going down the stretch that way. East region, top seed Virginia, no-brainer here. The Cavs 28-1 out of the ACC. I have them taking on Albany. The Great Danes are the favorite to win the America East tournament, 21-8. Vermont is certainly going to be in the hunt in that too. You could see sleepers like maybe like a Stony Brook or New Hampshire, but Albany usually has won this conference the past couple of years. I believe I remember last year correctly, the Great Danes gave Florida the #1 seed, a very tough game last year, in that because Albany won a first 4 game last year against Mount St. Mary's, and then they gave Florida a pretty good game for a while. So I think they only lost by like 12 points, I believe. So Albany could be a very tough out, if they get going. So we'll have to watch that America East tournament closely. Right now, Albany is the favorite, but don't be surprised if somebody else sneaks in there. 8-9. I think this would be a very entertaining game too. Dayton and Georgia. Dayton, again, the job that Coach Miller has done there with the Dayton Flyers this season, now leading the Atlantic 10. Very entertaining team. Of course, they made the Elite 8 run last year as the 11th seed, 23-6. Against this Georgia team, 19-10 out of the SEC, gave Kentucky all they could handle last night on the home floor. So again, Georgia, I think I had them like a seed or two ahead of the 9 before last night, but after that loss, dropped them a little bit, now to the 9 line. But I think Georgia, to me, still looks like a tournament team. I think the SEC, and I posted this on Twitter last night, I think the SEC is going to get 6 teams in the tournament easily. I think they're going to get 6. I think Kentucky, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, LSU, and Georgia. I think those 6 are going to be pretty much, when it's all said and done, I think they're going to be solid locks. I can't see any of those teams right now missing the field of 68. I think those 6 are going to get in. So, and really below that, there's not really any bubble teams really outside of those that are really going to crash in. I think everyone else would have to win the SEC tournament to steal a bid. So, and bubble teams out there don't like that. So I think Georgia, in the end of the day, is going to be okay too. 5-12. I have North Carolina as the 5, 21-9 out of the ACC. I have them taking on a winner of one of the opening round games. Now, to preface this, when I did say that because of the fact that I locked Iowa and Ole Miss into the field, one team that originally I didn't have as a bubble team was now going to fall a couple seed lines a little bit. That team is Cincinnati, and I know I said on Twitter, if you guys follow my Twitter, I said that Cincinnati at first to me was really was not defined as a bubble team. But then I took a harder look at the profile and the numbers, and I thought, maybe a little bit. Let me take a look. Let me pull up Cincinnati here. Cincinnati, it does have, now Cincinnati, the good thing about Cincinnati is they do have 20 wins. The Bearcats do have 20 wins. They're 20-9. That's always a good number to hit in the committee's eyes. But when you look at the numbers, they are quite low. A 49 RPI, just barely inside the top 50. 72 strength of schedule. That's really what's weighing Cincinnati down a bit. They're only 4-4 against the top 50 and 6-6 against the RPI top 100. So I really had to take, when Iowa and Ole Miss locked themselves in the field, I really had to take a harder look at Cincinnati and say, okay, is this team really a bubble team or are they not? I really had to kind of reevaluate a couple teams, Colorado State included, that really I kind of thought, are they truly defined by bubble or are they not? And then I decided, yeah, I think Cincinnati more or less does kind of fall into that category. I don't think Colorado State does. I think Cincinnati more or less does. And the fact that they're only 5-5 in road games, 6-4 in the last 10. Don't get me wrong, they got a good record in the American, but really conference record isn't a big factor overall when it comes to the committee. So, and the fact that their profile is weighed down by 3 really bad losses. Well, maybe not as much Nebraska. Nebraska is very much a barely below top 100, but the Tulane loss and the loss to RPI 247 East Carolina, that's a killer. So in the end, Cincinnati was hurt by the fact, in my opinion, that I had to lock teams into the field because of their quality wins. So that hurt Cincinnati. So that was when I said I didn't want to give away right there on Twitter. I said one team is going to be hurt by this. It's Cincinnati. So I have Cincinnati here in the opening round at 20-9, taking on UCLA out of the Pac-12 at 18-12. The Bruins, again, another very interesting case as well. When I break down the whole bubble board, we'll break them down as well. But that's where I have them right now in the opening round first 4 game. And then the 4-13, Wichita State out of the Missouri Valley, the Shockers at 27-3. I have them taking on Harvard out of the Ivy League at 20-6. Again, Ivy no conference tournament. Harvard and Yale will be battling down the stretch here in these final last week or so, to determine who gets the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. 6-11, SMU out of the American, 23-6, leading the conference. Or are they leading, or I have to remember, are they leading or is Tulsa leading now? I think Tulsa's leading now. It's kind of a back and forth. Tulsa leads by a half a game. Okay, so it's a half game lead for Tulsa over SMU. But I think, again, SMU is safely in the field. I have them locked in, 23-6 out of the American. I have them, again, taking on one of the first 4 games. NC State against Purdue. I think that would be a very entertaining first 4 game in Dayton. These are 2 teams that, while they're not, safe in the field yet, I think certainly, their numbers, I think, they're both have very decent things going for them, but also not so much. NC State the fact that NC State has helped, the record 18-12, not that good, but the fact that the numbers, they have the 5th toughest schedule. That really helps NC State. That puts NC State in a much better position above a lot of bubble teams because that strong strength of schedule. You got 5 top 50 wins. That's good. 8-10 against the top 100. That's decent. You have 2 bad losses, but that's not really a big ding. But the problem is 4-6 over the last 10 games, 5-5 in road games. That hurts NC State a little bit. They took care of business yesterday at Clemson. That was a big win for NC State. Now you get to play Syracuse at home on Saturday, so that's also a big game. Even though Syracuse is banned from the tournament, that would still be a top 100 RPI win on the resume. So that would put NC State at 19-12, 9-10 against top 100. I think that would put NC State in a very good position as well. And I think if NC State pulls at least one upset in the conference tournament, I think NC State gets locked into the field and gets off the bubble. So NC State's in a very good position. I think Purdue's in a very good position. This is my team. I think Purdue, this is the school this school I cheer for, school I graduated from, and I'm not going to be biased, but I think a lot of people have Purdue on the last 4 in their brackets, and I agree with that. Purdue at 19-10, 59 RPI. The strength of schedule, though, kind of still in the same boat as Cincinnati, 71. So they're like 1 spot above Cincinnati. 3-4 against the top 50, but they are 8-7 against top 100, and they're 8-2 over the last 10 games, so that's still good. But Purdue struggles on the road, 4-5 in true road games. They missed an opportunity a couple days ago, lost at Ohio State, but they have a big opportunity tonight to really put themselves in a better position. If they win at Michigan State, who is a likely tournament team, I think Purdue certainly is very close to being a lock, if not a lock, for the NCAA tournament. If they win at Michigan State. If they lose, then it really gets dicey then, I think, because then you host Illinois on Saturday, and Illinois is hovering around the cut line in a lot of brackets. So it's going to be this tonight is a huge, huge game for the Purdue Boilermakers. I think they really need to win this game to feel very, very comfortable about their position going forward. 3-14 in the East. Baylor out of the Big 12, 22-8. The Bears have been, again, the Big 12 has been amazing this season, top to bottom. I have them taking on South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits leading the Summit League at 21-9. They're going to be battling with North Dakota State in all likelihood to see who wins the Summit League conference tournament. Their rivals up north. 7-10, St. John's out of the Big East. Johnnies, what a turn. Claps to the Johnnies, because what a complete turnaround. Earlier in the year, at least probably 3 videos ago, we were listing St. John's either a bubble team or out of the field completely. We literally dismissed St. John's. And then all of a sudden, it came together. Steve Blavin's team started winning. Sir Dominic Pointer has taken control of the team, making plays. Complete and utter turnaround. St. John's is now a lock. They are in the field. They're going to be at least the 5th Big East rep to get in. 20-9, complete turnaround. Good on you, Steve Lavin. Good job by the Johnnies. I have them taking on LSU out of the SEC. Tigers at 21-8. Again, I think they get in the field. I have them on that last 4 buys, the 10 line right now. But I think the Tigers look pretty good in terms of their resume. 4 top 50 wins. There's a couple bad losses on there, which is why they're in it, on a double-digit seed. But I think for the most part, LSU to me looks and feels like a tournament team. I think they are in a pretty good position. And then the 2-15, here's Gonzaga, 29-2 out of the West Coast. The loss to BYU dropped them from the 1 line. I have them taking on NC Central out of the MEAC, 23-6. The Eagles ran the table in the MEAC this season, undefeated conference record. They will obviously be the favorites to win the MEAC tournament. And then finally, the Midwest region. Top seed here is Duke, 26-3. Wild story going on at Duke. If you guys haven't seen the recent reports, that apparently Rashid Suleiman, who was dismissed from the team earlier in the year by Coach Krzyzewski, first person that Krzyzewski's ever dismissed from the team, which that surprises me in a way. But apparently he was convicted of or at least charged with, or at least there were 2 sexual assaults that he was supposedly involved in. And it came out that Duke knew about it 10 months before they suspended and kicked Rasheed Suleiman off the teams. And Duke's not commenting on it, obviously, because they can't. By law, they can't. It's an active investigation. They can't comment on it, and Coach Shevsky can't comment on it, and I applaud him for that. But if that's true, wow, that would certainly be a stunning revelation. It'd be interesting to see if the NCAA, if it all, got involved in that. If they knew and didn't file anything on it and didn't notify, if no one was notified on that, it would, in a way, would it kind of be like Jerry Sandusky all over again, with not proper people not being notified of what was going on there. So, and I don't want to make light of that. I don't want to say that that's a worse situation than this, or that the Suleiman situation is worse than Sandusky. But it's almost like if a sexual assault happens, you have to notify the proper people. You have to notify. They have to know what's going on. And if you knew what was going on and you didn't tell anybody, it's kind of like you're covering it up. It's kind of what happened to Penn State football. It's kind of like you're covering that up. So I hope that's not the case here. I hope that's not what happens, because even though I'm a North Carolina fan and I don't really like Duke in a way, I don't like them. I don't listen to their players, I don't listen to what they do on the court. I wouldn't want to see something happen to them as a program that brings them down like this. I wouldn't want to see something happen like that really crushes the program entirely. So that would be tough. That would definitely be tough a little bit, even though it would be the right thing to do if what came out was true and the right thing and justice needed to be done. It would definitely be a crushing blow for Duke University, for the program as a whole. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I would have them taking on the 16, again, one of the first four winners. North Florida, currently the favorite to win the A-Sun, turning 21-11. They are going to be in a battle, I'm sure, with Florida Gulf Coast. It wouldn't surprise me if North Florida, Florida Gulf Coast was the final, and Eagles and Ospreys are going after each other. Is that even bird legal? I don't know. But, bird bite. But in all likelihood, that's probably what we're going to see there in the final. These two teams have been the top in the Atlantic Sun all year. I have them currently getting the top spot because they had the better regular season conference record. And I have them taking on Texas Southern out of the SWAC. Again, they have been the top team there, 17-12, because of the fact, again, Alabama State and Southern not eligible for the postseason because they're at poor academic standards, not meeting ADP, or I think AYP. It's like academic yearly progress or something like that. So, poor graduation rates. So, because of that, Texas Southern will get the nod to be the best conference team that is eligible. 8-9 matchup, Michigan State out of the Big Ten, 19-10. I mentioned that game tonight is a big game for Purdue. I think it's also a big game for Michigan State in the fact that if Michigan State beats Purdue, I think Sparty's a lock for the field too. I think Michigan State certainly is going to be a tournament team, but I wouldn't say they should be in, but I wouldn't say they're locked yet. I think if they beat Purdue tonight, I think I could go ahead and lock Michigan State into the tournament field for sure, because that would be a huge win for Sparty as well. So it's a big game for both teams. Let's just put it right there. It's a bigger game for Purdue, obviously, because to get in the tournament, but I think for Michigan State, it's a big team to ensure that they get locked into the tournament field. I have them taking on Xavier out of the Big East, 18-12. Again, Xavier's profile is very interesting. Let me pull up Xavier here, because Xavier's is just a very interesting case. They do have a losing conference record. They are 8-9 in the Big East, but again, the Big East is very tough this year. Xavier's played some tough teams. They have beaten some teams in this. They've swept Georgetown, which is really what has Xavier going for them. They've swept Georgetown, which is huge. They beat Providence, and they beat Butler, and they also beat Cincinnati, who's hovering around the cut line. So that's a good win for Xavier. 5 top 50 wins. So you're in a very good position. Great strength of schedule. 18th toughest schedule. 9-8 against the top 100. Very, very good there. But the thing that's hurting Xavier a little bit, the 18-12 record, 5-5 against top 100, or 5-5 in the last 10 games, and 4-7 on the road. So, and you've also got 4 bad losses hurting this profile: Long Beach State, Auburn, DePaul, and Creighton. Again, those bubble killers, DePaul and Creighton. So, that's really what's hurting them a little bit. But I think for now, Xavier's still in a very good position. Now, if Xavier starts to pull a Seton Hall and stumble down the stretch, then we might really have to kind of drop Xavier a line or two. But for now, I think Xavier's okay. They're certainly barely in the field right now on this 9 line, but I think for now, Xavier still feels like a tournament team. 5-12, this would be a very entertaining one, I think. And again, this is where that dangerous 12 seed could be no account. Arkansas out of the SEC, 23-6, taking on Murray State, the Racers, 26-4 out of the Ohio Valley. Certainly going to be the favorite there to win the Ohio Valley tournament. And again, would you really want to draw Murray State in your bracket, considering how they get up and down the floor, they can score in bunches? I certainly wouldn't. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't want to draw Murray State or Stephen F. Austin or Wofford, maybe not even Iona. I wouldn't want to draw those teams, because maybe you can put Valparaiso in that discussion, because Valpo is going to be, I think, a tough out too. And again, I have them here on the 13 line taking on Utah, and I think that could be a scary matchup for Utah too, because again, Bryce Drew's team scores a lot of points. They've pulled upsets before. I believe Valpo was a 13 when Bryce Drew hit that shot to upset Ole Miss. I remember that game. It's still vividly in my head, and I know that was, 17 years ago in 1998. I still remember watching that game at home on my TV, and I don't even remember if I had Valpo in my bracket or not. I probably didn't. But when Bryce Drew hit that shot, I'm like, oh! I was going nuts. I was screaming at my television. I couldn't believe he did that. And the play was just perfect. That tip pass, right to him, and just throws it up there to Chuck like on a prayer. I mean, that was just awesome. And I still remember watching that, the grainy CBS footage, the old style images. I remember that. So that was just fun. And now that he's coaching the team and they're still doing well, good on Valparaiso. Good for them. So I have Utah-Valpo as the 4-13 matchup there. The 6-11 here, Butler out of the Big East, 21-9. The Bulldogs, again, lost to Georgetown last night, but I still think Butler's good for the tournament. They're going to be a tough out. Butler just plays hard-nosed style of basketball. It's the Butler way. It's no matter who's coaching the team. By the way, good props to the interim coach that has now taken over the full-time job at Butler. Still continuing to play well even through that whole situation. I'm taking on Tulsa. Frank Haith's team out of the American, 21-7. I think that'd be a fun matchup as well. Two very hard-nosed, defensive, gritty teams. Don't win games in a very pretty fashion, but they get the job done. I think that'd be a fun game to watch as well. 3-14, Oklahoma out of the Big 12, 20-9. The Sooners still a strong team. Buddy Hield, their playmaker there, is a very good player. He's fun to watch. I am taking on Central Michigan out of the MAC. Again, a great turnaround by the Chippewas. They were like one of the worst teams ever a year ago, and now they're 22-6 and leading the MAC. So big turnaround for the Chips. 7-10, VCU and Indiana. Two teams that have completely collapsed down the stretch. One because of injury to losing Briante Weber, and the other, what is the reason? I think IU now is a giant-sized question mark. I had that question mark on the... do I still have that question mark in the satisfaction guaranteed? Yeah, if you blew up that question mark, that's IU right now. IU is one gigantic big red question mark just swelling at your screen. Like, what is, though, I don't know if you guys have seen it. The billboards in Detroit that say Sue, question mark, like, IU, big red question mark. What do we make of Indiana right now? I don't know what to make of after losing to Iowa yesterday. I really... This team now is very much a head-scratcher. IU still has a lot going for them. Now, let's look at both these teams' profiles, because these are two teams that really, I think VCU is still a lock. I think VCU is still in the tournament. I think VCU is still a tournament team, 11-5, 21-8. The numbers are amazing. Top 20 RPI, top 20 SOS, 10-6 against top 100, 8-3 in road games. I think VCU is still really, really in a good position here. I don't think VCU misses the tournament by any stretch, because they beat Oregon, who's coming up. The Northern Iowa win looks amazing. And then you got wins over fellow bubble teams, Cincinnati and Davidson. Those are good wins. They're top 50 wins. But clearly they have been in some ways a night and day different team without Briante Weber. That's clearly the case. They've lost to Richmond in a double overtime thrower. They've lost to St. Bonaventure. They've lost to LaSalle. They've lost to teams that normally, I think, with Briante Weber in there, they wouldn't have lost to. So VCU, but let's take a look at Indiana. Let's look now at Indiana's profile and why they're now in this precarious position. 9-8 in the Big Ten. You're barely above 500. You're 19-11 overall. Your RPI plummeted from somewhere in the 30s, 40s down to 54. Your strength of schedule now is only at 35. You still have the 5 top 50 wins, and that's good. You've beaten SMU, which is a great win. You've beaten Butler. That's a very good win. You've beaten Maryland. Great win. Ohio State, great win. So you've beaten probably 4 sure tournament teams, and you've beaten Pitt, and Pitt very much is hovering around the cut line. But then they lost to Northwestern, and that was the really first ding on Iowa's resume, losing to Northwestern when they were in that midst of that hot winning streak, which, by the way, included a win over Iowa. So that was, that was 4 straight wins. So maybe that was just momentum. I don't know. Northwestern won again last night. They beat Michigan in double overtime. So this Northwestern team, like I've said, no longer a purple pushover. So now what do we make of IU? 5-7 against top 50, 8-10 against the top 100, 4-6 now in the last 10 games, and 2-6 on the road. 2-6 on the road. This is not a surefire tournament team anymore. I mean, it may look that way, but clearly, if they continue to lose games, if they essentially lose, in the Big Ten tournament or lose to someone else they shouldn't lose to, it's going to be a really interesting analysis come Selection Sunday. I really think. I think, for now they're in, but they're certainly not safe. I think they're in the same position that Iowa was in. I think they're in, and Iowa just said, heck with you, I'm going to beat you, and we're going to lock ourselves in the field. Now IU's like, oh crap, now we're in this position. So, and now watch, I'll get flooded with IU haters. But it's like, that's the team they're at now. I think Dockich agrees with me. I think he said it was a big game either way, and if IU lost, I think they really had to take a step back and reevaluate where we have IU at this point. So I'm really, really worried here a little bit about Indiana. I am. I wasn't before, but now starting to lose games, losing to Northwestern, losing a big game here to Iowa, really got to reevaluate things a bit. I think for now they're okay, but a couple more losses and we could be singing a completely different tune about the Hoosiers. And then 2-15, Kansas in the Big 12, 24-6. The Jayhawks just won outright their 11th consecutive Big 12 title. Wow. You want to talk about a dynasty, that's it right there. I mean, you win a conference as tough as the Big 12 11 straight years. That is something to be applauded and rewarded. That is rock chalk. That is Kansas in a nutshell. All who enter the fog pay heed. I mean, that's, that going, the traditions, the titles, that's Kansas. That's Kansas basketball. That's how it is, and if you come in there and you expect to get a win, they will not make it easy on you. And that's exactly what happened against West Virginia last night. West Virginia, again, led for much of the second half. The game goes to overtime, and Kansas pulls it out. That's what Kansas does. That's how they play. I have them taking on High Point out of the Big South. The Panthers leading the way currently at 22-8. That's going to be an entertaining conference tournament to watch. They're going to be battling with a lot of good teams in that tournament, with Charleston Southern, with Coastal Carolina, with Winthrop, a couple with Radford. So there's going to be a lot of parity as well potentially in that Big South. But the Panthers right now lead the way. All right, so again, that's the projection real quick. Again, with the bubble situation, my teams on the 9 lines, the barely safes are Oregon, Georgia, Temple, Xavier. I think for now, all those teams are in a really, really good position. I think Georgia's in for sure right now. I think Oregon's in for sure. Temple and Xavier maybe not fully locked in right now. We'll have to win some games if they don't collapse, but I think for now they're okay. For the last 4 bye teams, Texas A&M, they do have a game on Saturday against Alabama. Alabama, again, is a top 100 RPI team, but barely. It won't really move the needle all that much. Like I said, I won't really move the needle all that much in terms of, Texas A&M, but it'll be a good win. At least get them to 21 wins in that regard. And then you look at Oklahoma State. Okay, 123. I had the wrong number on that one. Whoops. Okay. So for Oklahoma State tonight, they have a game tonight against TCU. The Horned Frogs are barely outside the top 100. They're 123 in the RPI. So that tonight, they can't afford to stumble there. But then they got a big game on Saturday going to West Virginia. If Oklahoma State wins that game, if they sweep the week, if they win against TCU and at West Virginia, I think Oklahoma State's starting to feel a little bit better about where they're at. I think maybe they would be in a much better position than where they are now as well. If they split by losing to TCU, I still think they're not safe. If they beat TCU but lose to West Virginia, I think they're in the same position where they're at now. So they can't afford a loss to TCU tonight. If they beat West Virginia on Saturday, I think they're in a much better position than where they are now. Indiana has a big game on Saturday. IU has a big game on Saturday hosting Michigan State. I think, again, that is a bigger game from an Indiana perspective than Michigan State. I think Michigan State for sure is a tournament team. But if Indiana wins that game on Saturday, That's a sixth top 50 win. I don't think you can leave a team like that then out of the field. If they lose to Michigan State, then we're still really kind of in a boat about Indiana. So, but if they win on Saturday, I think Indiana certainly, I would really lean then toward putting potentially IU as a lock, because again, that's 6 top 50 wins and 20 wins. Normally with a team with a resume like that does not get left out of the tournament field. So I think that is a huge game for IU on Saturday. LSU on this list at last 4 byes. They have Tennessee today. Tennessee is barely outside the top 100 in terms of RPI, so a loss there really, it wouldn't hurt, as much. It would be a bad loss on the resume, and that would be, I think, their 4th outside top 100. But Tennessee is hovering along that line, so it might not be a damaging loss. But a bigger game is on Saturday when LSU goes to Arkansas. If you win at Arkansas, I think that's 5 top 50 wins. If you're LSU, I think then you're locked in the field. So a lot of opportunities for these teams this week to capitalize on these opportunities. Last 4 teams in. NC State took care of business. I mentioned took care of business against Clemson yesterday. The Syracuse game on Saturday is a big game. If they win that game, NC State, I think for now it goes off the cut line. I think that because, again, that'd be another top 100 win. I think they would definitely at least move up to last 4 byes. Cincinnati has a big game today. Cincinnati has a big game today at Tulsa. If Cincinnati wins at Tulsa today, that's 21-9 and 5 wins against the top 50. That again would really then, and I think their RPI would shoot up if that happened. Then I think Cincinnati, if they win that game, it would be hard pressed. I don't know if I would lock them yet. I would maybe at least put them in on last 4 byes or the barely safe line, like on the 9 line. That would at least take them off the bubble. So if they win that game, that's a huge game for Cincinnati tonight. If they win that game, if they sweep the week, if they beat Tulsa and Memphis, then I think maybe you look at Cincinnati as a lock. But I think tonight's game against Tulsa is a huge one for Cincinnati. For Purdue, it's simple. If you beat Michigan State tonight at Michigan State, that's 20 wins. That's 4 wins against the top 50. I think that would get Purdue off the bubble. Maybe not locked into the tournament yet, but certainly in a better position than what they are now. This is a big game tonight. It is a must-win game, at least from my perspective, for Purdue. They beat Michigan State tonight. Definitely looking like a tournament team. And for UCLA, they have to avoid a bad loss. They took care of business a couple nights ago, beat Washington State. You got to beat USC tonight at home. USC is an RPI of 207. You can't afford another bad loss like that in your profile. UCLA right now is just barely in the tournament. They're the last team in my field, so you can't afford a loss like that. So you got to take care of business tonight. Beat USC. As for the first 4 teams out, BYU, all they have left now is the West Coast Conference Tournament. And really, BYU, I think, they're hovering around the cut line on a lot of brackets. Some brackets have them in, some have them out. I have them as the first team out of the field. If BYU can score at least another big win in the West Coast Tournament, and that might have to come against, say, a Gonzaga or maybe even a St. Mary's, they can't afford a bad loss, because if they lose to somebody that they're not expected to lose to, they will sweat on Selection Sunday, I think. Because really, all BYU has going for them is the win over Gonzaga. That's really all they have going for them, and their fact that they played well down the stretch and their road record. That's really all BYU has going for them. So they've got to really show something in the West Coast Tournament. They may have to win the whole shebang just to solidify it, but for now, BYU and I very, very, very close. As for Texas got a big win against Baylor. Now that kind of came with the brawl there when the 7 players got ejected, but no one's getting suspended, but that's the good thing for Texas. Texas though plays Kansas State on Saturday. Kansas State is a top 100 team, so that would be another top 100 win on the profile. Again, if Texas gets, Texas is kind of the same boat. If they get to 20 wins, Texas's numbers are amazing. Texas' RPI is 38, their strength of schedule is 7. That's great, but the other numbers not so much. 3-11 against the top 50, 6-12 against the top 100, 4-6 over the last 10 games, 4-7 on the road. Texas has to win games. Texas just has to. Texas, like Al Davis, just win, baby. I mean, that's what Texas has to do. They have to win games. They have to make a deep run, I think, in the Big 12 tournament. If they do that, I think Texas then would be the 7th team to get in from the Big 12. Stanford, the Cardinal, I think, would be well pressed to sweep this week. maybe a split would. I think if Stanford sweeps the week, I think they could potentially creep up to last four in stats, depending on what other teams do. Stanford right now is 18-10. The numbers are low on both sides: 56 RPI, 54 SOS, 2-5 against the top 50, 7-7 top 100, and 5-5 in the last 10. You got to win at Arizona State tomorrow night. That's a given. Arizona State is a top 100 team at 84, so it wouldn't be a back-breaking loss by any stretch, but it wouldn't look good overall in the profile. And then if you win at Arizona on Saturday, that's a huge win. That would definitely vault Stanford up at least a cut line or two. So that would be a huge win for the Stanford Cardinals. If they split the week, then we're probably sitting in the same boat. Pittsburgh, a lot of people mixed on Pittsburgh. I have them on the first four out. I think a lot of people have them on the next four out line. Pitt's at 19-11. The loss to Wake Forest earlier in the week was very, very damaging. That really took them, off a lot of people's boards. The RPI is at 51. The strength of schedule is at 36. 2-5 top 50, 5-8 top 100. They're 2-8 in road games, so that really doesn't help the Panthers' cause. I think Pittsburgh has to sweep the week to stay on at least stay on the board. You play Miami today. Miami is at RPI is at 71, so that would give you a 6 top 100 win if you beat Miami. And then you got to go to Florida State, and you can't afford to lose that game. So if Pittsburgh sweeps the week, I think they stay in a very good position. If they lose to one or either, I think at that point Pittsburgh falls off the first four out line and then falls to next four out, or at least on watch territory. Rest of the team's still in the hunt. My next four outs are Old Dominion, Davidson, Illinois, and Richmond. Old Dominion can't afford a loss this week. They they play Marshall and Western Kentucky. Old Dominion has going for them 2 top 50 wins against LSU and VCU, and that was when Briante Weber was healthy. So both those wins still look very good to the committee. 6-2 against top 100. So that is a good thing going for them. But they're hurt by the fact, again, low strength of schedule, playing in Conference USA. So, but just keep winning games, and we'll keep looking at them. Davidson is a big game tomorrow against hosting VCU. Even though VCU is falling down the stretch of late, still a top 50 win potentially for Davidson. Can't afford a sweep at Duquesne. They lost at Duquesne earlier in the year. They played Duquesne on Saturday. Can't afford a loss there again. Illinois, the Illini 61 RPI, a 50 strength of schedule, 3-6 top 50, 5-10 top 100. They are 2-7 in the road. That really hurts the Illini. The game against Nebraska tonight, you can't afford a loss there because Nebraska's RPI is 122. The game at Purdue, though, looms large on Saturday for Illinois' chances, if any. That's a big game. So Illinois, if they sweep the week, that puts them at 20-11. It gives them 4 top 50 wins. Certainly, they might take Pittsburgh's place or even higher. Could go up a seed line or two. Could actually get into the discussion. Maybe first four out, maybe on the 11 line if they sweep the week. So I'll pay attention to Illinois. For the Spiders, 17-12 record. That really isn't in their favor, but they do have 3 top 50 wins, a sweep of VCU, 6-8 against top 100. They're 7-3 over the last 10. The problem with Richmond is the Spiders are not very good on the road. They're 3-9 in road games. That hurts their profile. But a big game today at UMass, fellow bubble team, 65 RPI. I think if you're Richmond, I think you have to win that game to stay in this position. But then you can't afford a loss on Saturday against St. Louis at home, 3-7 at the Robins Center, where Richmond plays very, very well, mind you, with the Richmond Rowdies. So they play very well, so can't afford to lose. Another team still in the discussion, Buffalo, St. Mary's. They only have the West Coast tournament left. Green Bay has the Horizon League tournament left, might have to win it to get in. Rhode Island lost to Dayton yesterday. That hurts the Rams. They're now 0-5 against the top 50. UMass, I mentioned UMass again. They're just a big game for them with Richmond. They're 1-6 against top 50. How about Connecticut? Let's talk about the defending national champions. Let's talk about UConn. A lot of people have been talking about UConn. Let's talk about UConn, shall we? Let's talk about UConn. Okay, UConn, they're not on the bubble, but they're certainly hovering around the bubble. They're 17-11. 69 RPI, 67 strength of schedule. They now have 4 top 50 wins. They knocked off SMU earlier in the week. That's a big win. That's a tournament team win. So you got 4 top 50 wins now. You're 5-10 against top 100. You're 6-4 in your last 10 games. That's good. But you're 4-6 on the road. If UConn sweeps the rest of this week, if they beat Memphis and Temple this week, they win at Temple on the road, that would put them at 19-11. That would put them at 5-7 against top 50, 7-10 against top 100, 5-6 on the road. I think we have to take a lot more serious look at Connecticut if they sweep this week. So let's pay attention to the Huskies here this week. Miami, 18, they're still in the hunt, but 1-6 against top 50. I mentioned Seton Hall. Seton Hall, again, has two big opportunities this week. Providence today, Georgetown Saturday. If Seton Hall wins both those games, they don't have to take a harder look at the Pirates. And UTEP. UTEP at 19-9, barely on the board, 76 RPI. They can't afford a loss this week to either North Texas or Rice. Teams that are off the board, that again are really not in the discussion right now, but if they make a run, could certainly be Yale, Toledo, Minnesota, Illinois State, Florida, Georgia State, Kansas State, Michigan, George Washington, Eastern Washington, UNLV, Memphis, Kansas State, Alabama. Those are teams below kind of the 70 mark that, you know, if they get a couple wins under the belt, maybe we start talking about them a little bit more. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you guys again so much for your comments, you know, any thoughts that you have, even to those who blow up my Twitter because you don't agree with me, as long as you're rational. Thank you on that. Thank you for letting me share my piece about the Iowa thing. Again, that was just a very odd, unique situation that never happened to me before. If you guys have any thoughts to share about, you know, again, I know Robert Vandermeer, you've been sharing your last four in the first part with me, and that's great. I love seeing that, seeing your thoughts. And if anyone else has any thoughts, comments, your take on the field, or your teams that are in or out, share them below. Share them down there on the channel below, or on the channel itself. I will try to check my Gmail. Again, it's been pretty crazy with March now in full swing and the tournaments going on. I will try to check my Gmail as often as I can to see your guys' responses. So thank you guys again for the support. This, you know, why do I do this? I do this because I love college basketball, just because I love the game. It's a fun way to really see what's going to come tournament time. It helps me with my bracket picks when I fill them out. It helps with that. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this, and we'll hopefully have another video up really soon. I'll probably target. Oh, let's see. Let me look at here. Maybe early next week, maybe even midweek. Maybe let's look at Monday the 9th. Let's target that date for now, and if anything changes, because I'm off for that day, I will let you guys know if anything changes before then on the channel. So keep following, keep tracking with me on Tracking the Madness. Thanks guys so much, and have a great week. God bless.